Welcome to Tackle This. I'm Martin Lipton. I'm the Sun's chief sports reporter. Now, without question, one of the most fundamental, controversial debates in football isn't who's going to win the title. It's whether the game itself needs to change with the banning of heading. With me is someone who argues there must be fundamental changes to the game. Now, Nathan Howarth is the executive director of Concussion Legacy Foundation in the UK. So I ask you straight away, Nathan, why do you want to ruin football?
Put it simply, I don't want to ruin football, but I don't want football to ruin lives. We are seeing that people are resulting in neurological and neurodegenerative disease as a result of playing football and mainly heading. And that's been proven with the NIH and the NHS putting out a causational statement that heading and subconcussive blows have resulted in chronic traumatic encephalopathy and other forms of dementia. We see it in the field study. And we're also seeing that particularly young people that have participated in contact sports are 10 times more likely to get chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a neurodegenerative disease that ultimately both limits their life and affects their quality of life just by playing contact sports below the age of 10. Now, we don't have or need those skills in terms of heading or contact sports for those young people, yet it drastically affects their lives. So why should we actually be having heading, particularly for young people, when it's not a core component of their game? And it won't necessarily benefit them in the long run and potentially cause harm.
But football is about all skills: kicking the ball, controlling the ball, and heading the ball. It's an innate, natural thing to do. We lionise players who head a ball. You know, in the current game, you've got the likes of Harry Kane. In the past, Alan Shearer. Before that, Jackie Milburn and others. Why do you want to change something that's such a part of our heritage?
But I think also to a degree that we're seeing players change their style as well, because the reality is where we see the long balls that go through in our professional game and the elite end are changing. We want to be playing the ball up the field and on the floor so we can retain possession. We don't want that contest. And the reality is those moments are where we're also getting the most high risk. You've got players that are experiencing 80 G-force in heading, according to FIFPro's study last year. Now, 80 G-force is 30 Gs greater than a car crash at 50 miles an hour. You wouldn't be expecting somebody that has a car crash at 50 miles an hour to then run around for potentially another 89 minutes.
But you're looking to take away part of the fabric of the game. The greatest save in football history was from a header. Under your position, Pele's header against England in 1970 would never have happened.
But the problem is you then look at the legacy that heading then leaves. We've got families that are currently unable to speak to their loved ones in the same way that they speak to their family that have not been affected by football. And the problem is just because it's in that moment for football that really wants those key sporting moments, they have to live their lifetime with the consequences of conditions like chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Now, yes, it is a fundamental as part of the game, but if we can avoid heading and head impacts as best we can for particularly young people, because it is not a key skill for them to play, I would challenge anybody that goes along to a under 12-year-olds game to find me a key component where heading is vital for them to participate in the game. Would you not agree that hitting young people in the head is wrong?
It's not something I would tend to do, I must admit, but this is different. In a controlled environment, I don't think there's anything, from my perspective, that's wrong. I actually understand the argument the FA have put in, because they've banned heading at all at under 12s and limited heading in training. And I can see that to a degree. But if you then go to play the full adult game and you've not learned to head the ball properly, isn't that a danger in itself?
So partly it can be a danger, but it is just as dangerous as a shoulder-to-shoulder that then slips and we get a collision that we get an injury from. The difficulty with the current situation, particularly with the FA, is it is a opt-in trial. It is not a blanket ban, and it is up to leagues and clubs to opt in. So actually, we should be having a blanket ban at 12. And I don't think I think you said, Martin, that you wouldn't disagree with that, because actually hitting the kids in the head is wrong. And the reality is it's not necessarily a controlled environment. And we always get the line that, no parent would knowingly harm their children. But knowing is the problem here. And just because we see it in the professional game as being a necessity doesn't mean that we should have it as a necessity in the kids' game.
See, I would argue that one of the problems here is there's a direct correlation drawn between heading a ball and dementia head injury. Whereas the truth is, dementia is, sadly, an unfortunate natural part of the human condition. People are living longer now than they used to, and therefore plenty of people who've never headed a ball in their lives are suffering from this. And to try to draw parallels between and draw a direct correlation, for me, is a mistake. You know, Shakespeare wrote about dementia. He just didn't call it dementia. He called it second childhood. Same thing, isn't it?
Well, the difficulty with dementias is that, yes, they do happen in the normal population. And we have, in academia, we are undertaking these debates, hence the Bradford Hill paper on causation that came out last year. That puts us in this direction of saying that currently CTE meets the causational requirements that it is caused by repetitive head impacts.
What's more dangerous, though? A footballer, a kid, an adult heading a football, or a boxer being repeatedly punched in the head? A jockey risking hitting their head every time they get on a horse, and that's far more dangerous because there's genuine force then. Rugby, where often any forward will be trampled on 4 times. Motor racing, where they have to, all these other sports. Surely you ban them first before you think about impacting on football.
The reality is that it's a greater level of population that is participating in football and therefore at a greater risk in football from being exposed to head injuries. You mentioned other sports, and I'm keen to see them change, and I'm keen to see particularly rugby. We've got a reduced tackle height. I'm really keen to see what effects that might have. But the reality is that if we talk about the dangers, the current research has never pinned a footballer against a runner. So we know that football players that play at the elite level will be fitter than the general public. That might also do things that are modifiable risk factors for dementia. So smoking, drinking, being overweight. So if we want to get a true representation of how much risk is associated with heading, we need to compare a professional footballer to someone like Mo Farah. And that level of elite athlete that is not truly exposed to head impacts or a lifestyle that might put them at risk of dementia. So we currently don't have an ability to compare the two populations, but given our science at the moment, we should be doing these comparisons, and the comparisons we have at the moment suggest heading is in that way. Now, if I'm wrong, all I've done is stop people getting hit in the head. But if I'm right and you're wrong, we potentially expose a number of generations to head injuries and head impacts that they didn't need to have.
So can you tell me what football looks like at the elite level in 20 years' time?
I think that's up to the footballers, and the footballers should be answering that question.
And how do you stop someone naturally heading a ball that's this height and going towards the goal, going towards their goal? How can you possibly make that not part of the game?
I understand that. And I think that's where we have to think about the underlying skills that can be developed outside of heading if we remove that as part of our training base.
Because one of the things, if you can't hit the ball high because you can't head it, the game itself is very different because you have to play low through block defences. So it's going to be it will significantly alter football. And in my opinion, not for the better.
But you say about altering the sport. What's the fastest growing sport in the US at the moment? It is flag football. And it has fundamentally changed the culture over in America. People are now actively seeking an alternative to contact and contact versions of American football. So flag football is now the fastest growing sport in America. So it can happen and it can have positive
You're
impacts.
not going to get the networks paying millions to watch flag football. You're not going to get the same interest, I don't think, I might be wrong, in football without all the aspects of what makes football still being there. You're looking to take away. And I understand the rationale. I just don't agree with the argument, if that makes any sense. Do you not sense that sometimes you should let things be because they're good? There's what makes people want to watch the game.
Unfortunately, it might be good, but have the conversations with somebody that's got early onset dementia and that can't remember their kids' names. Those are the people that actually we need to say, was this good for you?
Well, it's pretty clear that there's an awful lot of opinions I think I'm right. Nathan thinks he's right. I wonder what you think. Please give us your comments to see whether you believe that football and heading are no longer compatible. In the meantime, thanks for watching. This has been Tackle This. I'm Martin Lipton. My guest has been Nathan Howarth. Thanks for watching.